went to the Reptile Super Show at the Pomona Fairplex, and this is part of a larger show or exhibition called the LA Pet Fair, where a bunch of animal enthusiasts basically got together and brought their reptiles, their fish, their birds, their plants, their insects, and everything in between to the Pomona Fairplex. And it was really cool because I got to see so many animals that I've only previously seen either online in pictures or had never even seen before. And so the first thing that we saw, of course, were snakes. And I'm not kidding when I say there were probably thousands and thousands of snakes. So not the best for someone with a snake phobia. But my friend who I went to the fair with, I went with two of my friends. One was a big fan of hognose snakes and their different morphs. So we took a tour around some of the tables and she would point out the different morphs to us. My favorite was the Super Conda, the really bright orange one. Yeah, I don't know the names, but they were really cute and they had these really striking patterns. And some of the vendors were even kind enough to open up the containers, show us their animals, and let us hold them, as you might see later. And so there were also a bunch of geckos. Here are some that were just rolling around, and we're back to snakes. So there was really a wide variety of reptiles at the fair, and so many different morphs and colors. In addition to the hognose snakes, there were also some other species. I think these were pythons of some sort. I'm no expert, but they were really cute. They have these really round noses and it makes them look like they have many nostrils, and I love them, especially this one, which had a smiley face on it. Just hold on. I mean, it just looks like it has a permanent little cutie mark on its back, and it's so adorable. And I absolutely freaked out over this and showed it to everyone around. But if I could take one of these snakes home, it would be the smiley one. And then there was a little curious fella right here. Yeah, many pythons. So here was a different seller who was showing off some of his snakes to a potential buyer. He kept them in these storage containers with open tops so we were able to look at them. And you can't really hear it here, but he was telling the guy that this snake in particular was especially feisty. And then I noticed that one of them was escaping or plotting to escape. And so, yeah, there are more snakes, some yellow ones too, yeah, and this was later with a successful escape. In addition to the more common species, there were also some less common ones, just like these indigo snakes, I think they were called. They were really glossy and black, and it was really cool to see the breeder just handling them while they just chilled. And this table was from a breeder who seemed to really know what he was doing. He said that he could tell you the birthday and the gender and the eating habits of all of his snakes, which made me feel like he kind of knew what he was doing. You know, he was there and like knew his animals, unlike some of the other booths, which was really cool. And they look like candy canes. Okay, have you ever seen a gecko's toe pads up close? Because if not, here you go. Next we went to a booth that had a bunch of bettas. there were Dumbo bettas and koi bettas. The koi bettas are the ones with koi-like patterns, so they're a bit splotchy, multicolored, while the Dumbo bettas have the large pectoral fins that make them look like big ears. And these were really colorful. I mean, they're small containers, but I get it, it's for the travel. And so I really hope they went off to good homes, because if I had the space and the tanks, I would totally adopt a few. So this was at the same booth, and my friend who loves tarantulas was able to hold one of their little juveniles, and she was really excited about it. We also got to hold this old boy right here who was a rosy boa. The seller was telling us that, you know, these can either be really mean or really nice, and he just felt lucky that this one was one of the nicer ones, and so we played around with this guy for a bit, and he was really chill. Next, we went and saw some amphibians, just like these salamanders. I've seen the videos where people go and flip over rocks and find a bunch of salamanders, but this was my first time actually seeing many of these colorful amphibians in person. And I thought it was cool how, unlike the containers used for lizards and snakes, these have some foam or like sponge on the bottom of their containers to retain the moisture. And then there were some larval or juvenile amphibians. I'm not sure what the right term is, but they still have their external gills, which most of them grow out of as they reach adulthood. And so my friend was asking, are these all axolotls? And I had to disappoint her and say, well, no, they look like them, but not quite. Regardless, we were still all freaking out over how absolutely freaking adorable these little critters were, because they were so clumsy, they were swimming around, and especially this tank. I think one of us made a comment about their toes, and so I could not stop thinking about little salamander toes for the rest of the day. Said this one looked like Godzilla, and I totally had to agree. So this booth was run by Tiki's Geckos, and I had never heard of him before, but while we were looking at all of his animals, I think at least 5 people came up and asked for photos, and so we got online really quick, looked up his name, and found out that he's apparently a huge influencer for geckos. And so that was really cool because he seemed really down to earth and was willing to let us hold his geckos and could tell us some facts about them, like how many of these crested geckos had dropped their tails, which is why they kind of look like little froggos. Right here, my friend was able to hold the gecko, and for her, this was her first time handling one, but to be able to interact with the animal so up close, yeah, it was just so cool. It was really cool. And just, yeah, enjoy the footage of this little leaping gecko because it is so cute. And of course, no reptile show would be complete without the bearded dragon, which from what I've heard is one of the most beginner-friendly reptiles that one can become an owner of. And it was exactly like I expected it to feel like. Really hard, scaly, spiny, not very interactive, or it didn't really respond back to me. But it was cool looking, and I really enjoyed watching them feed on these little cockroaches, because look at this guy go. He's just munching and munching them down, and it was thoroughly entertaining. Next up, we saw a few chameleons. And I had never seen a chameleon outside of its enclosure before, but we were able to go there and watch people take them out and hand feed them these crickets, I think they were. And look at that chameleon just munch down on those legs. It was so cool. This vendor actually let my friend hold the chameleon, and it was so friendly, so active, and I even got to hold it afterwards too. So here is the biggest lizard I saw all day. I'm not really sure if it's considered a lizard, but it was a tegu, and I just had to go up close and put my hand up for comparison because its head was quite literally double the size of my hand, and it's hard to see, but it was massive. And now we have these little froggers, and they were so blue, and they came in so many different colors. I was a little scared of these at first because I've heard the stories of the poison dart frogs being used to kill people, you know, with their toxin and weapons. But the guy assured me that they were totally fine because he didn't feed them certain alkaloids. But it was concerning because a few of them did run away and he did have to catch them under the table, but it was all good. And he was also selling some of these, I think, glass-bellied frogs, but I've seen videos of these also, but it's so cool. You can see their hearts beating, their intestines lined up perfectly inside of their body cavities, and it was just so cool. Yep, and they also tucked their legs in so neatly. It was adorable. Okay, next we officially moved on to the bug section. So here were some different bugs. Here, this was a golden orb weaving spider, which spins these really beautiful golden webs. And there were a bunch of different scorpions, mantids, spiders, arachnids, and like everything in between, including the tarantulas, which my friend, like I mentioned earlier, is a big fan of. So we were really looking around at the tarantulas, admiring their webs, you know, their places of residence, and of course those lovely hairy appendages. There were so many tarantula species, and seeing them all posted up like this as if they were, I don't know, items on a menu or a catalog was especially interesting. And yeah, so many types. Then we went to another vendor who actually let my friend pick up one of their tarantulas, and I forgot which species this was, but it was pretty active and crawled all over her hands. But then I picked it up and it tried to run away from me, and I'm glad I didn't get that on video. One of the vendors was selling pinned bugs, and the cool thing about this was that they were all laid out like a museum, but it was kind of like one of those candy stores where you could pick and choose what you want and put it all into a bag. But obviously they didn't sell them in a bag, they sold them in glass cases. And so just off to my right, this woman was picking her own insects, and she was choosing different kinds of butterflies, and she ended up making this really pretty arrangement of different exotic butterflies, and it looked really, really cool. My only concern would be that these are ethically sourced. I do know that is an issue in the bug collecting sort of world, where lots of these are killed in nature and not on farm. And I did see it, the internet famous rubber ducky isopod. A little bit underwhelming, but it was there. It was cute. We went to see more tarantulas, and these were not as active and didn't have that many webs in their enclosures, but they were still pretty cool nonetheless. The Invertebrate Club of Southern California was doing a fundraiser where if you paid $1, you could hold one of their bugs. And of course, my tarantula loving buddy was able to pick up a tarantula, and this one was so sweet. It moved so slowly compared to the other one, which tried to run away from me. But this one was really sweet, and it did not try to dash away at all. And it was such a pleasant chestnut sort of brown, and I ended up holding it also, and it was so sweet and so cute. The last bugs we saw before leaving were these ghost mantises, and they were just kind of chilling on this branch out in the open. Like, there was no glass outside of this. They were just waving around like dead leaves and just chilling. So he actually invited us to go and pick up a few of the ghost mantises, which was so cool. And here's a picture. As you can see, they were super gentle, did not run at all. Of course, we can't forget the plants. There were so many vendors selling many different types of rare and exotic tropical plants. So many of these can be housed with, say, frogs or other amphibians, but they can also be placed as their own individual display plants. So many of these were rare aeroids, which is the family of plants, and they were selling for the high hundreds to high hundreds range, and it was really cool to see them up close. I've definitely seen pictures of some of these, especially the variegated ones, but it was really cool seeing them up close and how many different species and cultivars there were. We also stopped by the Carnivorous Plant Society's booth, and there were many different types of carnivorous plants, including these butterworts, which look a little bit like succulents until you look closer and see that their leaves are actually covered with a sticky substance that traps different gnats and flies. And there were many other cool plants at this booth as well. Last but not least was one of the art booths that we passed by, and these were just so cute yet so realistic that I wanted to leave you all with this. So enjoy.